Let's talk about ANWR. You were involved on some legislation there, correct?
Yeah, I've been leading the legislation to protect the coastal plain of the Arctic Refuge since I got to the Congress.
Why did you get involved in that issue and, fighting for a wildlife sanctuary so far from your home district?
Yeah, well, it's a fair question. Part of that answer is the work that I've done most of my adult life as an environmental advocate. I was an attorney at NRDC before I went to the state assembly, but in both my private life and in my public service, it's just been overwhelmingly focused on good environmental natural resource policy. So to some extent, I think they had me pegged when I arrived in Congress. And I had a colleague, Rushholt from New Jersey, who was getting ready to retire. He had been carrying this legislation on the Arctic Refuge for many years, and he kind of took me aside and said he wanted me to take the baton and run the next leg of this relay, and I have tried to do that.
And so the Trump administration was literally auctioning that off for oil drilling right in the middle of the insurrection. The state of Alaska was actually the biggest bidder there. It was really no major oil companies that showed up to bid on that. Hard to say whether that's the, kind of the PR blowback or, what do you think's going on there? Is it just, they don't want the bad PR, or there's not enough oil and gas for them to go for there, or what's the scoop?
I think it's a combination of factors. There has been an incredibly effective effort to reach into the financial sector and to bring reputational damage to any major lender that would associate itself with pillaging the Arctic Refuge. And so one by one, you saw Bank of America and Wells Fargo and Goldman Sachs, everyone else just sort of say, we're not going to touch that. We're no longer going to underwrite drilling in the Arctic. That's fantastic. We've never had that before. But at the same time, market factors. When oil drops below, I think it's $40 a barrel, you lose money on oil in Alaska. And we saw a plummeting of oil prices to the point where I think at one point they were trying to pay people to take oil last year.
Yeah, negative 37.
During the pandemic. So we had those factors working in our favor. And then finally, I do think that we are at or near a tipping point where people understand, big initiatives to tap into new fossil fuel reserves are just probably not where we need to go for our energy future. So I'm pretty encouraged by where we've landed. You talked about that lease sale that the Trump administration just sort of almost artificially forced on the world, and it didn't go well. So a lot of reasons to think that we are closer to permanent protection of the refuge now than we've ever been.